Honorable President, esteemed guests, and delegates to the conference, it's really an honor and a pleasure to be able to be with you today. My name is Mohamed Motala, and I'm the Executive Director of an organization called NACOSA. NACOSA stands for the Network Community of HIV and AIDS in Southern Africa. It started its work before the democratic government came into this country, and over the years, increasingly, as it worked with in the world of HIV, recognized that there were key populations that were affected more than other populations by HIV, and one of them are people who use drugs. And in that sense, NACOSA runs programs that supports harm reduction and works closely with people who use drugs in that way. Part of our DNA, and what's exciting about this conference, is that it's titled Putting People First. And the second thing is that it's a policy conference. Having worked in civil society organizations through the transition in South Africa, you would know that the level at which community-based organizations and policy making and the role that NGOs had in doing that, we sort of got less and less over the years. In the earlier years, every NGO, social movements would have policy and research officers, and in that way contribute to policy making. As our new government came into place, a lot of that responsibility we gave over to government. And government, in the way that it went about delivering services, developing policy, and the sterling work that has been done, changed many, many people's lives. But the role of civil society in that process slowly withdrew from policy making. And I think this conference and the opportunities it presents, in the way that Sean outlined how it came to be, really warmed my heart. That civil society, again, starting to engage actively with policy making and where that is going. So in that sense, we're really honored, and it's a pleasure to be able to be not only part of this conference, but support the policy work that goes on in it. In light of the earlier statements that were made, that the populations, the key populations, sex workers that Sisonke works in, that got spoken about. But tomorrow and in the days that come, I want to look at and hopefully build on the criminalization of key populations, but also the criminalization generally of poverty. Increasingly, you'll find that poor people who try to make a living on the streets, street traders, that is criminalized. In the city of Cape Town, for example, you won't find street trading. So people that work, poorer people that try to make a living, sex workers, street traders, this kind of work is criminalized. And perhaps there's something in the policy we need to look at, because you find that even people who use drugs, in the way that they lead their lives are criminalized. Looking at the populations, the prison populations, you'll find that poorer people and people that come from key populations, there's more chances of them coming into conflict with the law. So in the way that our policies are derived and the work that we do, perhaps there's something we need to look at. And that's what I'm interested in, that hopefully in the way that the week develops, the kind of policy making and the way that we're able to raise the voices of people. Because in NACOSA's work, putting people first is one of our key sort of priorities in the way that we deliver services, in the way that we make policy or we try to influence policy making. For us, the intersections between poverty, between racism, and people of color and how that impacts, and women, so weaker populations, marginalized populations, all of that comes together. And in the building of community-based organizations and in the supporting of movements that are at the heart of trying to bring about change, that is where we see our work as NACOSA. So being part of this conference is really something that I looked forward to, and it was a privilege and an honor to be asked to support the conference. Thank you very much.